Every year, 7 million people cross Trocadero Square to touch those cold steel beams. 10,000 tons of metal slice through the Parisian sky, standing tall as the ultimate symbol of refined romance. Tourists from around the world freeze at its base, tilting their heads back as the intricate summit fades into the thick evening haze. Thousands of golden lights sparkle. Camera shutters click. Confessions of love echo in the air. But 135 years ago, this very silhouette triggered waves of uncontrollable rage and nausea among the people of Paris. A metallic chimera, an ugly factory smokestack, a monstrous black skeleton crudely thrust into the heart of classic stone grandeur, surrounded by graceful Haussmann boulevards and luminous palaces. The Parisian elite boiled with fury, signing furious petitions and demanding the immediate demolition of this industrial abomination before it permanently ruined the historic face of their great city. The most iconic monument in human history began as nothing more than a temporary makeshift structure. By strict terms of its government contract, it was doomed to be ruthlessly scrapped exactly 20 years later. Today, we'll peel back the layers of this grand engineering scam. We'll uncover how the real architects of the design were erased from the story for a pittance. And we'll witness how a cynical government contest forgery saved this iron giant from certain death while it was still just a blueprint. This incredible chain of events pushed one calculated man to risk his entire fortune, reputation, and freedom for a wild dream. A dream that, by all logic, should never have come to life. Spring of 1884. In the quiet of a spacious design office, blueprints lay spread across a sturdy oak table. They depict a giant lattice tower, more like a colossal power line pylon or an oil rig than a monument of elegant architecture. Two modest engineers, Maurice Koechlin and Émile Nouguier, just transferred this bold concept onto precise graph paper. Their design defied every known law of physics and construction of their time. They planned a tower exactly 1,000 feet tall, 300 meters. At the end of the 19th century, that number sounded like the ramblings of a madman. The tallest structure of the era, the Washington Monument in the United States, barely reached 169 meters. The great Notre Dame Cathedral, built by generations of craftsmen and long seen as the pinnacle of human achievement, rises just 69 meters tall. Koechlin and Nouguier proposed a steel behemoth that would nearly double the height of the tallest American obelisk and tower, more than 4 times above Notre Dame's spires. Its sheer scale would visually overwhelm every familiar landmark in Paris. This was pure, uncompromising industrial functionalism. 4 bare metal legs converging at a single point high within storm clouds. No refined beauty, just harsh material science and cold iron, engineered to withstand hurricane-force winds at unimaginable heights. Gustave Eiffel looks at this blueprint with the skepticism of a master bridge builder who has seen it all. A bare industrial framework won't impress a spoiled public or cautious government officials. The project needs a design that's both striking and easy to understand. That's where the company's chief architect, Steven Sauvestre, steps in. He takes this dry, mathematical skeleton and adds architectural flesh, massive decorative arches at the base that visually anchor the structure and tie the heavy supports together, spacious reception halls on the lower levels, glass-enclosed galleries, and an elegant dome crowning the top. Before anyone's eyes, the industrial tower transforms into a lavish exhibition pavilion, gaining the status of a monumental work of art. At this moment, Eiffel realizes the true potential of the design. What stands before him is not just an unusual tower, it's a guaranteed ticket to historical immortality. One of the most brilliant and ruthless deals in engineering history unfolds. Eiffel buys the rights from his engineers for just 1% of the project's cost. Koechlin and Nouguier hand over the era-defining design for a sum that looks like a mere pittance compared to the incoming multi-million budgets. 1% for an idea that will become the defining symbol of an entire nation. The real creators' names vanish from the title page forever, leaving only the name of a brilliant and utterly cynical businessman in the history books. Time is relentlessly racing toward 1889. A grand World's Fair is on the horizon, marking the centennial of the French Revolution. France must stun the world, showcasing unmatched industrial power and crushing its rivals with technological might. The project for a 1,000-foot tower seems perfect to demonstrate that strength, but it faces a brick wall of academic snobbery. Back then, metal is seen as a dirty, common material, fit only for dusty factories, practical bridges, and noisy train stations. True, high architecture must speak the language of noble stone alone. On the horizon emerges a fierce rival, Jules Bordet, a respected architect. He proposes a massive granite solar column, perfectly aligned with the conservative tastes of Parisian elites and government committees. The state officially launches an open competition for the main exhibition monument. Eiffel's iron giant instantly falls to the bottom of the odds, but how do you win the architectural battle of the decade when the rules themselves are stacked against you? Paris at the end of the 19th century feels suffocated by tension, construction dust, and wounded pride. The upcoming 1989 World's Fair isn't just a celebration of progress for the government, it's a desperate move in a geopolitical game of revenge. After a humiliating defeat in the war with Prussia and the loss of territory, the Republic needs to prove its intellectual dominance to the world. The city's streets have turned into a single roaring machine of preparation. The air carries a mix of fresh earth, coal, horse sweat, and machine oil. Behind closed doors, an obsession is growing, the idea of a colossal monument. Officials demand something grand enough to outshine all previous wonders. Society holds its breath, ready to make any sacrifice for this triumph. A sweeping search for designs is underway, while the academic elite hopes to see a new classical masterpiece, worthy of the greatest palaces of old. But behind closed doors in the halls of power, an unspoken iron rule holds firm. No self-respecting artist dares break it. True art must speak the language of noble stone. Pure white marble, weighty granite, chiseled limestone. These stand as the only acceptable materials for a nation's grandeur. In the 1980s, iron carries a stigma. It's seen as dirty, common trash, the language of rail yards, factory smokestacks, and shadowy workshops. To propose bare metal as the country's defining symbol feels like serving soup at a royal banquet. Parisian elites, raised on the elegance of the Louvre and the Opera, wrinkle their noses at any mention of steel beams. Conservatives insist industrial style will forever destroy the city's refined aesthetic. Gustave's industrial sketch feels to them not like a mistake, but a brazen insult to French culture. Academic snobbery quickly finds its flawless favorite. Jules Byrd, the influential architect behind the Trocadero Palace, proposes a concept that sends the conservative crowd into a religious frenzy. His creation proudly bears the name the Solar Column. It's a towering granite monolith crowned with a powerful electric beacon at the top. The idea? This beam would cut through the night's darkness, flooding the boulevards with light, symbolizing the brilliance of the French mind. But Byrd isn't just thinking symbolically. Inside the stone giant, he designs spacious hospital wards. Patients would climb high, breathing clean air above the city's smog to heal their lungs. The project fits public taste perfectly. Monumental, built from traditional materials, it offers real social benefit. Byrd's heavy-hitting tower looks unbeatable, leaving the steel lattice of the bridge engineer with no chance to win. But an honest victory in the corridors of high politics is always an illusion. Enter Edouard Lacroix, the trade minister, an iron-fisted bureaucrat with a knack for intrigue. The government announces, with great fanfare, open competition rules for the best exhibition design. Yet the deadline for submissions feels like a cruel joke. Just 17 days to draft plans for a structure of unprecedented scale. Hundreds of architects work around the clock, hunched over their drafting tables, chasing the impossible. They don't realize the game is already over. The key lies hidden in the technical brief. The minister's decree demands a design with a square base, exactly 125 meters wide. It must rest on 4 lattice pylons, sit on Mars field, and soar precisely 300 meters high. Lacroix didn't just set parameters. He took Gustave's existing blueprints, copied their specifications into the official document, and sealed it. The nation watches a spectacle called free competition, even though the winner's name was written long before the newspaper announcements. This bureaucratic maneuver shatters Birdie's granite-hard dream in an instant. It clears the way for a steel giant. The contract is signed, champagne is poured, the political victory seems absolute. But the rigged rules hide a deadly financial trap, one that snaps shut the moment the results are announced. The government, having secured a win for its favorite, has no intention of funding his ambitions from the treasury. The allocated subsidy barely covers a quarter of the real budget. And the payment terms are crafted with ruthless precision. Funds will arrive only after completing the most challenging construction phases. Any delay, miscalculation, or strike means immediate bankruptcy and the collapse of Gustave's empire. He had to fund the construction of the national symbol out of his own pocket, risking his entire savings. At this critical moment, when millions of francs of personal wealth hung in the balance, a furious aristocracy stepped in. The influential Countess de Pour, whose windows overlooked the future construction site, launched a ruthless lawsuit. She demanded the work stop, claiming it would ruin her view and shatter the neighborhood's peace. What do you do when the court threatens to halt the project that defines your entire life? The minister's signature on the government parchment feels like a death sentence for any construction company. The contract to build this colossal giant has been approved, but its financial terms resemble a twisted medieval torture. The bureaucratic machine of the Third Republic operates with ruthless pragmatism, guarding the treasury against even the smallest shocks. The state allocates a meager 1.5 million francs, a drop in the ocean for a project of this unprecedented scale, whose real cost exceeds 6.5 million. The engineer must find the rest, turning his own pockets inside out. What's more, the government subsidy doesn't come as an advance for steel or to hire thousands of skilled workers. The funding comes in rigid, no-nonsense installments. The company receives each payment only after clearing incredibly tough stages of high-rise assembly. Officials skillfully shift every single risk onto the private contractor's shoulders. A slight delay in delivering steel beams, an unexpected strike by riveters, or a technical error at dizzying heights immediately cuts off the next payment. It's a financial noose, tightened around the company's neck before the first shovel even breaks ground. The system is designed so that if unforeseen problems arise, the government walks away unscathed, leaving the builder to handle the wreckage of their own ambitions. Harsh, almost draconian conditions would have driven any sensible businessman of that era to quit. Building a structure twice as tall as the Great Pyramid of Khufu in less than 2 years. This was a task teetering on the edge of science fiction. Funding such a bold experiment entirely from personal savings? Pure, unfiltered madness. The mastermind behind the lattice viaducts grasped the looming risk more clearly than anyone else. He was used to working with precise formulas for material strength, yet he had to stake his own property, drain family bank accounts, and take on massive loans with sky-high interest rates. He wagered his spotless reputation, a reputation forged over decades of grueling, relentless work, constructing bridges and train stations across Europe. If things go wrong, if the structures collapse or cash runs dry, it's not just a lost contract. It means total ruin. Factories get auctioned off in public, and the industrialist faces a humiliating debtor's prison. Every steel bolt hammered into the massive foundation, every beam hauled by heavy horse-drawn carts, comes paid with the hard-earned francs of a man who trusted mathematical logic more than the cold, hard judgment of Parisian financiers. This grand construction turns into a high-stakes game of roulette, where a whole life hangs in the balance. His reputation, his family's future. At this moment, the Mars field looks bleak and uninviting. A vast, muddy wasteland, dotted with deep puddles and ruts, spreads out amid elegant city blocks, steeped in the scent of dampness and decaying leaves. Right here, on the edge of a wealthy residential neighborhood, an invisible battle unfolds, one that could crush a bold dream before the excavation even begins. The powerful aristocracy strikes a cunning blow at the project's weakest point, wielding the legal system like a battering ram. The owner of a nearby lavish mansion, Countess de Pour, files a sharp legal injunction, demanding that all excavation work stop immediately. An aristocrat declares without hesitation that erecting this monstrous metal structure will forever ruin the view from her tall, bright windows. She insists it will blatantly violate the private status of the adjacent green park. This isn't just the whim of a wealthy, bored neighbor. Behind the influential countess stand the city's top lawyers, and the quiet but powerful support of the entire conservative elite. A court injunction would freeze construction indefinitely. And time is the one precious resource the contractor simply can't afford to lose. Even a single month's delay would trigger the collapse of government funding and bring instant financial ruin. The legal machine starts grinding down the prospects of the upcoming celebration of progress. The Countess's lawyers methodically prepare documents to seize the construction equipment. Facing this deadly threat, the entrepreneur makes a move that shocks both his arrogant opponents and his loyal partners. Instead of dragging out exhausting appeals or begging for closed-door deals in lavish salons, he drafts an unprecedented notarized agreement. This document, sealed by top lawyers, declares something unbelievable. The creator of the Grand Tower personally guarantees to cover every possible loss, astronomical fines, and penalties out of his own pocket if he loses the case in court. He willingly puts his neck on the line, accepting full financial responsibility for any, even the most catastrophic consequences of building this unprecedented monument. It's an act of fanatical, almost religious faith in the flawless accuracy of his own engineering calculations. The court, presented with such an ironclad financial guarantee from a deeply respected industrialist, promptly rejects the request to halt the work immediately. Legal battles could drag on for years, piling up volumes of paperwork, but the excavators and hundreds of laborers gain the lawful right to keep digging fiercely into the Parisian soil. The threat of bankruptcy recedes under the pressure of iron will, but only for a fleeting moment. After fending off a sophisticated legal attack with his own capital, the master gains a brief respite. Yet, this break proves alarmingly short-lived. Skilled lawyers and a well-stocked wallet can overcome artificial legal barriers. But beneath a thin layer of spring mud lies an ancient enemy, one impossible to negotiate with inside a stuffy courtroom. As workers struggle deeper into the viscous soil to lay massive concrete foundations, they suddenly hit an insurmountable physical obstacle. The proximity to the Seine has turned the lower layers of earth into a liquid, unstable quagmire, ground literally slipping away beneath their feet. It threatens to swallow not only heavy machinery, but the very idea of a towering triumph. The supports of this future giant must bear thousands of tons of metal, yet they must rest on a treacherous sponge, soaked through with icy water. How do you build a 300-meter tower on a swamp without sinking it? The banks of the Seine hide a threat that challenges even the toughest construction projects. Beneath what looks like solid ground on the Champ de Mars lies a shifting trap, soft enough to swallow concrete without a trace. 2 launch pads for a future giant stand dangerously close to the river where the soil turns into a squelching mess under the slightest pressure. Engineers must anchor thousands of tons of steel to bedrock, but a thick layer of sludge blocks the way. Standard excavation fails immediately. Trench walls collapse, icy water floods the pits, and the site turns into a quagmire. Machinery gets stuck. Workers sink into the frozen mud. Timelines fall apart. Yet the framework demands a flawless foundation. Any settling, even by the thickness of a sheet of paper, would spell disaster. Nature throws down the gauntlet. The work must happen deep underwater without ever going underwater. Solving this puzzle borders on technical madness. To build a foundation below the Seine's level, engineers use airtight caissons filled with compressed air. The principle is simple. Like an inverted glass submerged in water, the air bubble pushes the liquid aside, keeping the space dry. Massive bottomless boxes sink into the dense soil, while steam compressors pump oxygen inside under enormous pressure. Workers trapped 12 meters deep find themselves sealed inside a steel cage, a place that feels like hell. Temperatures soar. The air thickens. Their eardrums pulse with the pressure. Every pickaxe strike echoes with a dull clang in the cramped space. They work exhausting, short shifts. Breathing is hard. Sweat blinds their eyes. Nitrogen builds up in their blood, threatening fatal illness if they surface too quickly. They risk their lives every second, fully aware of the fragile shield around them. One pump failure, one crack in the hull, and pressure would plummet instantly. The river would rush in, leaving no chance to escape. After conquering the underground forces, the builders face an equally daunting challenge: balancing massive structures in the air. Enormous slanting supports, each weighing tens of tons, creep upward at unnatural angles. Their goal? To meet at a single point, 57 meters high, exposed to the relentless Parisian winds. Even a fraction of a millimeter off at the start would keep the trusses from aligning, turning the entire project into a pile of scrap. To level them, workers rely on hydraulic jacks and sandbags, a mix of brute strength and delicate physics. Pistons at the base of each leg lift the monstrous weight as if it were featherlight. But the true finesse lies in steel cylinders filled with dry quartz sand. By releasing a fine stream of grains, foremen lower the structures with microscopic precision. It's like tuning a complex instrument. only here steel beams replace strings, and gravity acts as the tuning fork. Amid the creak of metal, the commands of engineers, and movements too subtle for the eye to catch, an incredible moment unfolds. Precision triumphs. 4 supports lock perfectly together, fusing into a solid monolith. This engineering ballet comes to life thanks to an unprecedented factory production system located miles away from the site. In the workshops of Levallois-Perret, 18,000 parts are precisely drawn and drilled with mathematical accuracy. On the Champ de Mars, workers only need to fit them together, like pieces of a colossal puzzle. 2.5 million rivets glow white-hot in coal furnaces, are grabbed with tongs high above the ground and hammered in place. The scent of burning coal and metal seeps into the clothing of the ironworkers, balancing on beams without safety harnesses. As the iron cools, it contracts, pulling the pieces together with a force almost beyond human strength, forming unbreakable bonds. The emerging silhouette looks nothing like the familiar image of a delicate bronze lady. In 1889, the tower stood entirely red, a deep shade of Venetian vermilion. Its vivid scarlet frame sharply contrasts with the soft sky and the light facades of nearby mansions. This pigment wasn't chosen for showmanship. It was a practical necessity. A thick layer of lead-based red oxide shields the iron from damp corrosion. The monument appears like a giant, blazing blade driven deep into the heart of the city, boldly defying the classical art of the 19th century. An engineering genius tames the waters, defies gravity, and assembles a structure without fatal flaws. Yet each new tier of scarlet steel climbing toward the clouds sparks fiercer waves of social outrage. Renowned writers and architects unite to destroy this industrial monster before it tramples the city's skyline. The cultural revolt gains momentum, but the most devastating disaster unfolds far from the headlines, buried deep in closed accounting ledgers. The original budget crumbles to dust, wiping out financial reserves. Introducing innovative elevators that travel along curved paths inside the supports demands massive unforeseen costs. The project's price soars from 4.5 to 7 million francs, turning construction into a bottomless financial pit. Modest subsidies run dry. The creator's assets are drained. Creditors push hard for repayment guarantees. What promised to be a flawless technical triumph now risks becoming the century's loudest bankruptcy. Just steps from completion. Where do you find millions of francs when the budget spirals out of control? A fresh morning edition of the respected newspaper Le Temps lands with a dull thud on the marble tables of Parisian cafes. It fills the air with the sharp scent of fresh ink and the promise of a looming scandal. The date: mid-February 1887. On this day, France's intellectual elite shifts from quiet kitchen murmurs to an open, ruthless information war. 47 of the nation's most influential minds, renowned painters, acclaimed architects, theater directors, and composers, join forces. They sign a relentless public manifesto, standing united against the rising industrial shadow. In their eyes, this looming force threatens to swallow their beloved city whole. For them, classical aesthetics are far from empty words. This forms the very foundation of their existence, a sacred code refined over centuries of noble marble and stone craftsmanship. They don't see the towering metal structure as an engineering breakthrough or a bold scientific experiment. Instead, they view it as a brutal invasion of raw force into the delicate realm of refined art. With every new steel span stretching relentlessly into the gray sky above the Seine, panic within the bohemian salons turns into organized political resistance. They demand an immediate halt to construction, the dismantling of what's already built, and the salvation of the city's skyline from irreversible disfigurement before it's too late. Scathing words pour from the pages of daily newspapers, striking with deadly precision. They turn this technical structure into the prime target of vicious mockery and outright harassment. The celebrated novelist Guy de Maupassant and famed playwright Alexandre Dumas, the Younger, emerge as unofficial leaders of this aesthetic crusade. They wield their immense literary talent to systematically dismantle the creator's reputation. The harshest metaphors fly, hitting the engineer's pride without mercy. The future symbol of the nation faces public branding as a giant factory chimney, a black, perforated candelabrum, and a repulsive iron skeleton, devoid of any hint of harmony. For the refined society of the 19th century, this was like setting a roaring coal locomotive right in the middle of the Louvre's elegant halls, belching thick, acrid smoke onto Renaissance masterpieces. Cartoonists raced to outdo each other, painting the monument's creator as a mad, cynical businessman who sacrificed centuries of architectural heritage to feed his oversized ego. Furious insults spread across Europe, wrapping the construction site in a dense cloud of contempt and bitter hatred. The artists truly believed they were standing guard, shielding the heart of European civilization from a looming, grim era of soulless machines and ugly factory skylines. While newspapers stir up public opinion and fan the flames of outrage, something far more terrifying unfolds behind the tightly shut doors of the engineering office. An invisible disaster. The public sees the main contractor as a triumphalist villain, barreling toward his goal without hesitation. But in reality, he resembles a ship captain frantically bailing out freezing water from a breached hold. The real threat isn't the frantic petitions from writers, it's the cold, hard numbers stacked in thick accounting ledgers. Designing this unique lifting system turns into a financial nightmare. Innovative elevators designed to safely carry heavy double-decker cabins with dozens of passengers along complex curved paths inside slanted supports demand massive research investments no one had anticipated. The initial calculations plunge into chaos. The total budget soars from 4.5 to 7 million francs, breaking through the profitability ceiling. Government officials, firmly shielded by strict contract terms, refuse to allocate even a single extra cent from the treasury. The financial noose tightens relentlessly around the company's neck, threatening to halt the grand construction halfway and turn the unfinished, rusting skeleton into a monument to the greatest bankruptcy of the era. In deep desperation, trying to plug this monstrous budget hole, Gustave Eiffel frantically searches for any outside mega-project that could bring in quick, substantial cash flow. An unexpected rescue comes from the other side of the world. From the suffocating jungles of Central America, thick with yellow fever and malaria, the French effort to carve the Panama Canal through stubborn basalt rock and rotting tropical swamps collapses in ruin. Frequent, devastating landslides erase years of grueling earthworks, forcing the leadership into a desperate rethink. They urgently need colossal, ultra-strong steel locks, capable of lifting massive ocean liners over a mountain ridge. And in the entire world, only one person holds the authority and industrial power to take on such a wild challenge. The engineer agrees to design these steel gates, but only on one unprecedented condition: an immediate payment of a massive advance. The price stuns everyone: 70 million francs. That's 10 times the entire cost of his controversial Parisian masterpiece. This overseas deal becomes a lifeline. With the staggering capital pouring in from the struggling Panama company, the creator secretly funnels much of the money into keeping the fires roaring in his own forge. Here lies an incredible historical paradox. The future immortal symbol of French elegance is actually completed with dirty money from a doomed tropical scheme, destined from the start for a swift and shameful collapse. They have successfully crossed the financial chasm. Heavy steel beams push relentlessly skyward, but as the structure rises, it enters a whole new, unpredictable realm. It passes the 200-meter mark, far above the tallest spires of ancient cathedrals below. The air thins noticeably. An icy wind cuts to the bone, making the metal hum with a threatening resonance. The psychological weight of constant looming danger peaks. Workers, balancing every day on narrow steel ridges above the yawning abyss, suddenly grasp the true power they hold over the situation. They know the deadline to finish the site for the World Expo is burning down. Without their calloused hands, this ambitious government project would collapse overnight. High above it all, far from cozy ministry offices and bustling newspaper rooms, among exhausted riveters and towering installers, a harsh workers' revolt begins to take shape. Outside critics have lost. The threat of total bankruptcy has faded. But now the real danger comes from the very people who forge every piece of this colossal puzzle with their sweat and blood. What could shatter an engineer's life at the peak of his greatest triumph? At 200 feet, the September wind stops being just weather. It becomes a tangible physical threat. It howls fiercely through the steel ribs of the unfinished structure, shaking the suspended wooden platforms, and cuts through the workers' thick wool clothing to chill them to the bone. Far below, the city stretches out, tiny and toy-like. Horse-drawn carriages crawl like slow-moving insects, while the wide river appears as a thin, gray ribbon. Here, in this realm of constant vibration, icy metal trembling underfoot and piercing drafts swirling through, the builders' nerves finally snap. Veteran riveting crews drop their heavy hammers in unison, refusing to take another step into the yawning void. This isn't your typical political protest or a union strike. It's a primal survival instinct combined with razor-sharp calculation. The workers demand an immediate doubling of their hourly pay for every hour spent on deadly work high above the clouds. They fully grasp the power they hold over the situation. Deadlines are closing in. The grand opening of the World Expo is unstoppable, and without these few hundred fearless workers, balancing confidently over the abyss, gripping red-hot rivets with their tongs, the entire monumental state project would collapse in a single day. The construction site falls silent, frozen in a paralyzing stillness that costs the monument's creator thousands of lost francs every day. Gustave Eiffel meets the challenge with the icy calm of a seasoned commander whose troops have just faltered before a crucial assault. He climbs onto the platform, battered by every gust of wind, and locks eyes with the ringleaders of the rebellion. The engineer flatly refuses to change the base wage. He knows that any concession now would unleash a cascade of ultimatums in the even riskier stages of the tower's assembly. Instead, he offers a clever psychological compromise that shifts the very motivation behind the work. The base pay stays the same, but every worker who holds out on the site until the final hammer strike will earn a generous bonus once the entire project is finished. This move is ruthless, but brilliant. It turns hired rebels into full partners, each with a personal stake in the company's success. Those who refuse to play by the new rules get shown the door, grounded immediately, losing any chance to make history. The ones who stay come back to the shaky scaffolding with twice the drive, knowing they're no longer just fulfilling a government contract. They're forging their own financial victory. The heavy blows of sledgehammers echo across the Paris sky once more, marking the race against time as it resumes. March 31st, 1889, marks the day when all skeptics, aesthetes, and newspaper critics finally gave up. An engineer climbs a staggering 1,710 steep steps to plant the massive national tricolor atop the dizzying peak of a completed masterpiece. Far below, Paris erupts in thunderous applause. The crowd's ecstatic roar drowns out even the booming salutes of celebratory artillery. The long-awaited World's Fair begins, and a sea of people surges against the delicate metal framework of this unprecedented structure. Enchanted visitors stand in massive lines for hours, eager to experience the thrilling and slightly terrifying feeling of flight inside innovative mechanical elevators. In just 6 months, 2 million visitors from around the globe climb to the observation decks. Tickets sell out at a staggering pace. What once seemed like an overwhelming financial gamble, the massive initial investment, pays off completely, even before the exhibition officially closes. The monument, dismissed only yesterday as an ugly factory chimney, suddenly becomes the planet's most iconic architectural marvel. Upscale restaurants on the lower levels buzz with endless toasts. Parisian women flock to order silk dresses in deep, steely blue. Souvenir shops struggle to keep up with the rush to buy miniature replicas of the tower. For a brief, dazzling moment, the engineer stands at the very top of the world, bathed in warm, unquestioned glory, and savoring the rewards of years of relentless determination. The price for this dazzling victory hits from a completely unexpected angle, striking hard in the back just as the winner's guard drops, lulled by phenomenal success. A colossal financial pyramid built by an ambitious Panamanian company crashes with a deafening roar. It buries the last savings of hundreds of thousands of trusting everyday French citizens under its dirty rubble. Suddenly, the largest corruption scandal of the 19th century ignites. The outraged, betrayed public demands a loud, recognizable name to make an example of. He was once a national hero. His life-saving overseas contract to design massive locks had pulled his Paris construction project back from the brink of bankruptcy. But suddenly, he became the perfect target for public outrage. Just yesterday, the city's newspapers had praised his unmatched technical genius. Then, in an instant, they shifted tone, launching a ruthless, well-orchestrated campaign of xenophobic harassment. Reporters gleefully dug up his true ancestral surname, Bonnickhausen, passed down from distant immigrant forebears. Though this celebrated engineer was neither German nor Jewish by birth, the harsh post-war nationalism turned the mere guttural sound of that name into a catalyst that fueled the fury of the mob. He faces open accusations of treason, industrial espionage, and massive financial fraud. Long, grueling court battles begin, threatening real prison time, public disgrace, and the complete seizure of his hard-earned assets. The wave of irrational hatred swells to such an absurd level that his hometown, Dijon, in a blind surge of patriotic fury, rushes to rename the car bridge once proudly bearing his name. In an instant, the untouchable national hero becomes the Republic's most reviled outcast, forced to defend himself before an angry nation. While the exhausted, stress-worn creator uses his last reserves of strength to defend his honest name in the stifling halls of a Paris courtroom, a far darker and more relentless legal sentence looms over his steel masterpiece. Bailiffs, scathing caricatures, and furious reporters are only temporary obstacles, ones that can be fought. But the real, fatal threat hides in the yellowed pages of the original government contract. Sealed long ago with official ministerial wax stamps, this document holds one ironclad clause, one that cannot be challenged or overturned. Exactly 20 years after the triumphant debut of the World's Fair, this colossal symbol of human ingenuity faced a harsh fate. Authorities decided to dismantle it ruthlessly, melting down its steel and restoring the ground beneath to its original parkland. Practical city officials already started calculating the potential profit from selling 10,000 tons of high-quality puddled iron. They prepared coldly to erase the monument's bold silhouette from Paris's skyline forever. The irreversible countdown to the masterpiece's total destruction had begun. No engineering feats, glowing praise, or millions of tourist tickets could overturn the ruthless terms of the signed contract. How did invisible waves save the world's most iconic structure? The calendar relentlessly counted down the days to the fateful year, 1909. Every sunrise over the Seine felt like a grim reminder of the impending execution. According to the original contract, the tower was to be torn down 20 years after it was built. The bureaucratic machine of the Third Republic ran smoothly, gearing up to carry out this long-signed sentence. Time slipped away like morning fog over the Champ de Mars. Officials openly discussed dismantling logistics, requesting barges to haul away the cut beams. Steel mills rubbed their hands, eyeing the vast amount of iron up for grabs. For politicians, the structure had served its purpose. It amazed the world, brought in profit, and now it had to vanish, freeing valuable land. No amount of popularity could stop this momentum. Authorities wanted to restore the landscape's classic look, clearing the skyline of this industrial giant. The air around the supports hung heavy with anticipation while City Hall prepared the demolition paperwork. The mastermind behind this masterpiece refused to give up without a fight. He launched a frantic campaign to save the project that defined his life. Knowing that aesthetic arguments couldn't stand against the law, the aging engineer aimed to prove the practical value of his creation for science. At the windy summit, crews hurriedly installed barometers and pressure gauges. The peak became Europe's highest weather station, collecting data on air currents and temperature. At its base, the continent's first wind tunnel took shape, testing airplane models. From the upper levels, capsules were dropped to study gravity. These efforts drained the creator's personal funds but ended in disappointment. To ministers and lawmakers, the experiment seemed like desperate grasping at straws, justifications for a useless toy. No chart could outweigh the profits from scrap metal. The scientific case collided with cold pragmatism. The clang of sledgehammers loomed. Rescue came from an unexpected realm, one where aesthetics and weather took a backseat to geopolitics. At the turn of the century, Europe was sinking into paranoia over looming wars that demanded new communication systems. Wireless telegraphy, once dismissed as a parlor trick, suddenly emerged as a crucial tactical edge. In this critical moment, Captain Gustave Eiffel stepped into the spotlight, a military engineer with the mind of a strategist and the vision of an innovator. Looking at a doomed structure through the lens of war, he didn't see an architectural landmark. He saw a giant, perfect antenna. Sending radio waves across vast distances required enormous height, and no country had that kind of resource. Ferrier pitched a bold, almost crazy idea to his commanders: turn an exhibition centerpiece into a secret security installation. The general staff, recognizing the potential, quickly rewrote the rules, pushing aside civilian bureaucrats and shifting the game entirely. The transformation began without delay, turning the elegant silhouette into a battle-ready unit bristling with wires. Heavy cables stretched from platforms at the top all the way down to the ground, weaving a web designed to catch electromagnetic pulses of unprecedented power. Deep beneath the Martian field, steam generators filled underground bunkers with a low hum of tension and the sharp scent of ozone. The first radio antennas started intercepting encrypted enemy messages around the clock, coordinating the fleet across the Mediterranean. The structure gained an invisible yet all-powerful voice, capable of spanning hundreds of miles without a single wire. Its status changed forever. No longer just a chunk of metal, it became the nervous system of the French army. Losing it would mean blinding the military in the face of danger. The Ministry of Defense slammed the door on any dismantling, freezing government action with a single stroke of the pen. Invisible waves proved stronger than any official seal, wrapping the towers in a shield of national necessity. The historic turning point in the fight for survival came in 1912. That night, exhausted radio operators huddled in a cramped bunker picked up something unbelievable, a faint but unmistakable signal breaking through the static from across the Atlantic. The tower had established a direct link to Washington, spanning the vast ocean. This technological breakthrough hit like a bombshell in government circles on both sides of the water. Suddenly, the structure's military and scientific value became undeniable, earning international recognition. The old demolition order was torn up. The concession was extended for decades, ensuring the creation's long life. Born as a temporary illusion and despised by half the nation, the tower weathered threats and attacks to achieve immortality. Cold metal won against time and bureaucracy, standing tall in the heart of Paris as a monument to unwavering determination.